paint them with the matches.
Hey Ryan, say some professional historic words.
Score.
On this day, 10 years ago.
15.
I'm
Nothing
serious.
happened.
On this day, 10 years ago.
Nothing happened.
Seriously.
How do you know that?
Seriously, they're marking that anniversary.
How do you know?
It's in the papers. I'm serious.
Let's put them to that.
And
Six.
the Prague Spring.
Patrick. Come on, Patrick. There, you're on camera.
Okay,
That's
good.
Ryan's turn.
No.
You already had yours.
No.
Patrick. Ready? Ready? One,
Set.
three.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Ryan. Happy birthday to you. Ryan, you're making history.
Well, history's really
Congratulations.
I hope that was no wish about going to that movie tomorrow night.
No.
Okay.
Hey, hon.
Hey.
Dad.
Much smoother and mercury's all the way up.
Hi, Pat.
Hi, Dad.
Why leave it, yeah, why leave that in there, cause like, this is so fragile. And I used to worry, like, when I put it away, they'd be broken, if the box would drop.
Hey, Ryan. Hey, Ryan.
I started thinking, I'm just gonna put that stuff in there.
Hi.
And when it's Christmas time, after falls and, and more stuff, like in the city and stuff, but.
Yeah, they're nice to have, those Cheerios, because things, you know, they shop nice in there too.
But I just figured I'll just take that stuff in there, the whole snowman in there, like glass snowman. Yeah, this is, you know, just like, that picture can be taken, that could be any time of the year. That's why that's true, yeah. Cause it's a winter,
I
it's a winter scene.
I
Yeah, I
never
think
really
it's
thought
winter. I
of
don't
it as
think that'd be
Christmas
summer.
before until you mentioned that, no, no.
It's a winter scene, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that'd be summer.
No. I figure I have this Amish picture this winter in here, so. That's nice.
To be honest. I don't know.
You have fun at band camp tomorrow, Ryan.
I will,
See, well,
and
thank you for coming.
Alrighty.
Thanks for
Bye,
coming.
everybody.
Okay, buddy.
Hey, good luck on your
Did you
day.
meet them
tonight,
together?
too.
Thanks.
Drive
That's
careful.
weird. That's where I go.
Justin's old girlfriend.
Yeah, that's pretty funny, actually.
You didn't know.
What do you do, right down the parkway?
No, I didn't know.
Yeah, right down the parkway through Edgewood.
Maybe Amy will ask
Reading-
about that.
Reading Square.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
This is the way it's full.
Yeah, you probably better
Yeah.
on Swiss Valley, is it?
And they're down in
Yeah.
the gateway.
Go up
They're down
to,
in Majestic.
All the way to
So,
Penn, but
yeah.
you go,
I guess that's Fifth.
Fifth?
Forbes.
Forbes. Cut across Ford to cut down. We almost came back that way, but we missed it. We went down to Penn,
And we
down
went down Wilkinsburg.
part of it, just
Yeah.
part of it.
The beginning of Wilkinsburg, and isn't that right, you shouldn't do that at night, see? He lives on there.
What?
Get
Well,
out.
we're at actually the very beginning.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but still, it's still
The
close
street
enough.
and parkway.
Yeah.
Where?
Through Oakensburg, Penn Avenue.
Oh, Dad always goes that way. I'm
I
afraid.
go there in the daytime.
Everybody I know says not to.
Yeah, that's, and I remember Pam when she was doing a nursing internship, and she was scared to death going through there. She said she'd run people over if they got in her way. She was terrified.
Yeah.
And for Pam to be terrified, it's.
So maybe
it's
that's
bad.
why.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why everybody's
Just
terrified.
because it goes.
I'd rather go
Rest
to
of
Lake
the
J-
Yeah, it's in.
Edgewood,
Well,
or
I think
Rogers,
Oakensburg's
or
a
Hill
beautiful
even.
town. And I think
Yeah,
it's
it's a
trash.
shame.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just trash the people who live
Well,
there.
you know what though,
They're
it's
trash.
even like the undergrowth, and I don't mean this to be rude, but they need to jack the taxes up. Like
Yeah.
Oakmont, there's some beautiful homes there, and they're getting people in there that are gonna ruin the neighborhood and the community. You know, that shooting this summer was
Yeah,
at his
right by
friend's
Jeff
house,
Street.
right in the next street over.
Yeah.
Those are nice homes there.
They turned a lot
How'd
of
you
it
turn it
into
off?
Section 8, So I think that,
Turn it off,
yeah.
Patrick.
Well, that's good.
Oh my God, can't even forget.
I say one thing, it definitely wasn't cheap.
Nothing is.
Although I have a light on it, like, except it's built into the lens. So if I turn it on, it just automatically does
Yeah, I
that.
was a back wreck right by Jefferson Cemetery, you know, where the, where the funeral home is there.
Are you able to turn your LCD off? Like by doing this, can you turn your LCD off?
For the cemetery, it's only, for the funeral home. It's only been there for a while.
Hi, Josh.
Hello.
You're being filmed.
So they have one thing. Anyway,
I'm sorry.
so we're sitting there and I'm thinking, oh, geez, you know, they have. Working on it, because they have coffee.
I stayed with him, but I don't know myself.
Something, I guess.
Candid camera.
I got a nice patient.
And I heard sirens, but I thought they were on, I couldn't tell whether they were farming, but I couldn't tell.
There's some money at that.
So as we get up to the top of the hill and start down, I mean,
For your presence.
4 or 5 ambulances, 1 fire truck, 2 police cars.
I want to see it, Dad.
You know,
Oh, yeah, I have my new one.
Dad.
Germany is that.
I don't, not in Samsung.
It's real pretty.
Filming her vlog. Come on.
Pat, stop being shy.
I get embarrassed, Mom.
Germany.
And he'll come down when you get out.
Let's say
Head down for 20 minutes and then he'll walk.
No, I get embarrassed.
Patrick, how's your mom?
All over Europe.
There's some places.
Yeah, I get shy like that.
Yeah.
No, I always get shy like that.
His teacher told me about you,
Really?
Uh-huh.
I didn't. Pat,
he needs to work on that. It's gonna be great.
Yeah, no,
Pat, you'll
shy.
never be able to.
Yeah.
Really?
For as long as he was up when he was when he was little.
No, you won't get friends.
I don't care. I'm shy.
You're really uncomfortable.
Yeah, Ryan is really like going. Sometimes I feel like putting tape over his mouth.
It's hard to call if you want a friend. I get embarrassed.
You only live once, Pat.
Huh?
You only live once.
Yeah,
I
you
know,
have
but I get
to
embarrassed.
take advantage of it.
Go ahead, Ryan, go ahead. Show him how when you work.
They should put doing this.
Yeah, Pat.
They come to a line for his
Your Pat stays here.
And you
right.
bid.
I know. See, Patrick's.
Yeah, that's what he wants to
We lost a job there.
Good job, you're gonna
It was better.
She was working in GNC, and she told me about her trip. And she's like,
Yeah, see, that's what I think.
Patrick, go put the new one in.
She calls reverse auction.
she got me.
For your birthday?
Typically it's knocked the
Where's
price
that one
down
at?
30.
Downstairs.
Go ahead, put the new one
You will see the
It's
video.
264.
Come and say 30.
And she can go. Show him the,
You will see.
Okay, I'll put
the new one that he has. What's it on your bite? A bite or something? Your rug right there. The new one, Pat, the Donkey Kong. Where's that? Pat, be careful with the camera, Pat.
I know.
I keep mine in my carrying case. You didn't have it. Whoa. Huge. Should I eject this?
Doesn't matter.
How's it come out? I don't have any.
You guys done already?
Yeah.
Huh?
Yep.
Wow.
Did you write like, you don't tell anybody outside, just.
strong.
That's what he was accused of.
Huh?
She went to cut the other raw thing.
Play Nintendo.
Where you playing too? Hopefully, yeah.
They
Nintendo.
said that he had been,
I'd be worried
used
about
her
them.
in Russia.
No, he did, well, her too, I guess, but he was married. He
I would
was
wish
away from
him.
Russia.
Jimmy,
Oh.
how old are you?
Good, how are you?
The one in Russia.
Huh?
Good, how are you?
That was
No, how old are you?
You know, he'd been arrested for abuse.
284.
And he had a history of
204.
marijuana.
That's how old you
I
are.
thought, why do
I'm only 100.
these people when they
Yeah,
come
sure.
here? You know, I mean, okay.
How old are
let
you?
them come if we have to, but
25.
come a little bit. not just
25.
like
So old, isn't
anybody, You know.
Huh?
That's
If
real
they have
old.
a problem, then don't
Yeah.
let them come. And they can stay in their own country. We have enough of our own problems here.
Yeah, we have enough of the laws here to,
Yeah, exactly. Right. No, no, quite cool.
What?
Zoom, zoom on.
Okay. Oh, you're zoomed on.
Look at this cute.
But like,
Huh?
even
Look at this cute.
when he starts classes on Monday,
This cutie right
he'll
here.
be being worried. You know, he'd probably be getting worried about her.
You zooming?
Yep.
break the camera, you know.
Yeah, he might even. Can you zoom into that?
Yep.
Hey, you better not break this thing. This thing was just
Got
trying
it.
to start
We
burning.
Right.
need that, we need you.
When you found out like one of your close relatives was gonna die, you just worry about that.
Nick,
Let's see if I got your eye now.
I'm kidding.
Okay, I remember that, Josh.
They said, Jasmine.
Josh, zoom in right here.
No.
I wanted to ask coworker, who's telling me speaking that homeless guy, we got away when he was on trial. What did they do? Did they find him guilty?
That big nose, Patrick.
Good, I got the nose.
Had the long hair and everything, when he was on trial, he was
Get his bald spot in the back of his head.
Okay, here's this. See, I got it. It's right there. I see it.
This is a great one for the kids.
Yeah.
Dude, put your head out. I can't get it.
You can get his nostrils.
Okay.
We're supposed to get away too much, yeah.
I sure love to watch some videos.
Huh?
Yeah. He watches some other
They
videos.
don't have the.
I would like to see it, but I don't think it's important to
That's
have.
why.
Well, you'll have a
Well,
good kid at the
it is,
church.
it's not till, yeah.
Oh, because I thought they were picking the jury.
Tired Justin.
They, how was it?
Tired Justin.
Nope.
I can't remember
You
why
aren't?
they changed it, but it's not, till- something, there was something happened.
Looks like you are.
So they changed it, it's not gonna be until, I wanna say September, or October. I can't remember why.
We wondered, but we never heard anything more about it, and I thought.
That was why, yeah, they something's that.
Jay, where's it?
That man can't move that easily.
Oh, wait.
Me.
Rita, stay there.
How's your job?
That's your candle.
Smile.
Oh, no.
Wait, now he's taking a picture of her.
Thank you.
It's howdy doody time, it's howdy doody time.
Hey, Josh, put your kid, move the Josh, move the look a little bit.
It's a lovely lady.
Okay.
Me, how old are you gonna be?
The weeks.
I'm not telling.
Question
my
mark.
age. Question mark. 19.
70.
I'm 19.
Oh my God, you mean?
Yeah, Craig.
That
Okay,
is your age.
just wait. Just wait till you're 70.
Hey, David, you ready
Yeah.
now?
Yeah, it's 70 dot,
Who's lighting
right?
the candle?
David,
So
light
me,
the candle,
just
David.
think.
Do it.
Just
Okay.
think me. In 2 years, you'll be old enough to drink.
That's right, see that?
My God.
See Ryan, but he always,
Never thought I'd
he
see
always
that
makes
day.
me feel better.
Before we light the candle, I want to get a. Okay.
We'll get a good shot of it for you, Marty.
Yeah, so that way he can, you know.
So you can look
Well,
at it
Miss
later.
Myrtle said, remember that what Myrtle said? You're just a kid.
Yeah, that's
Remember that
right,
lady that was
Okay.
74 or something? She
Myrtle
said she's
always,
just a
yeah, she
kid.
said that about
You
that
expect
lady,
her to blow
doesn't
that
she?
far?
Blow the candle out.
We have to sing first.
Ready?
Hold on 1 second, I gotta pee.
Okay.
Happy
birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Mia. Happy birthday to you. Make a wish, blow out the candles.
That's the type of candle for the non-trumpet players, Justin. Justin,
Yeah.
that's the kind of candle for the non-trumpet players.
Remember that candle?
Yeah. Not like this, you want, and then we'll go on.
Fit all mine on that cake.
Yeah, Justin, your
That's
air.
my thing, that is the blowing out.
Oh, yeah. We can probably do all this out there.
You're gonna blow into it.
Well, the way you bring my back.
You blew all yours out.
Yeah, one day, we were being visual guys. I thought he said, I had no idea what Art's name was. It sounded like he said
Did we
Art.
have 80 on there? I couldn't
I
remember.
was like, oh my God, is that the same? He was like,
It's still for
then it
live.
turned out
When
like
it comes
this
to
guy,
our age, it's,
30.
yeah,
His
but
name
I
was
have
Martin.
6 on there, you can't blow them out.
Bark, yeah, bark.
This is,
I should have done that.
Give me a
Yeah, Mike Bradley.
I forget who Bart is, but I know Bart.
Looks like he's carving the turkey there. It comes with a big knife and
So,
he's had practice like his Cincinnati birthday cake.
Bear's band.
He's like,
So one day, with like Yoda, what's that? Mike
Ryan
Gaines,
had
our
one from,
designer, he came up.
Yeah, we were gonna do, that's like something we do, another ice cream cake, Lisa was getting
That's the best around.
Hey, I have a mixture. No, she was gonna get it from Mary.
She gets first slice.
I don't remember what we got that she was getting.
And I'll take whatever I can get.
Yeah, so we still get cake, and then the ice cream, then I have some of these jelly.
there's
Here,
Andy
I'll
Bigman.
hand it to her for you.
There's Andy Bigman.
Yeah, you
Mr.
can,
McKinney
you can
gives
put
me
it
girl.
on. Well, you were, there's awfully big for that.
You
You were supposed to
Harry
start happy
takes
birthday.
it.
Hey, Josh, you can pass it around, I guess.
She needs a fork.
She needs a fork. Here, you can pass the forks out.
Bigman's funny. Mike
Oh, Mike, yeah, Mike, yeah.
Would anyone?
Hand one down to me. Hand one down to yourself.
I'm getting the.
You doing ready?
Yeah,
Yeah, I did, yeah, that's yours. Hey, Pat.
Get your forks here. I got forks. Need forks. I got them.
Let me send one of all forks, no, I can't make it. Oh, no, that's a nice fork. Then you say, hey,
Who got one?
there.
Whoever.
Here, would you pass this down to me for me?
That's Jimmy's old one.
yeah, exactly.
What's Jimmy's old one?
He was like,
No, it's just,
he was talking to me one day. He was asking about you do?
no, this is fine.
It was like a penguin.
Yeah, Fuji.
Thank you.
Anyway, he
Jimmy and
said,
Heather, would you like
he
some
said,
coffee?
this one here is a
Sleep
free
tonight?
gift I got for you. I ordered tons more.
Hey, Pat.
Why do you order?
Lose the camera for a couple minutes.
He's
Eat
like,
some
no,
cake.
order them, get the
Okay.
free gift.
Hello. They spawn on us. We live in that house. Hello. I'm looking at this thing here. They're right there. So I can see it myself. Try it over and now. Now I'm still looking. Just no, what's that? Crap, phone rings. I'll record the phone. Hello?
Patrick,
Yes?
are you in?
Yep.
Did you hear from your dad?
No.
I'm waiting for him. He hasn't come yet. I don't know if he's coming or not. I was supposed to come. Your mother told me to tell you because you have to go get you have to go to Penny's and get some school clothes. So she said for you to start your homework immediately.
I don't want to do my homework.
You have to do it. She told me to tell you have to do it, Patrick, because you're going to go, when she comes, she has to go out and get Ryan at band, and you have to go to get school clothes.
Where's Ryan at?
Huh?
Where's Ryan at?
Ryan's at band.
Oh.
So get your homework out right now and start. You hear?
Well, I'm like done with it now, though.
Do it, Patrick. Now, Patrick, I thought you were in 7th grade.
I am.
Well, that's when you start to get responsible and to do this stuff when you're told, Patrick.
Okay.
Because she wants you to have it done so you can go for your clothes.
I will do it.
All right, okay.
All right.
Let me know if you hear from your dad.
All right.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, start now.
All right.
Okay, so long.
All right.
So long.
Bye. That was a recording of a phone. Now I will turn this thing off. They will eventually do the phone thing again. But it went down that I have to turn this thing off. Went probably half. Well, anyways. So that's that. That's the outside of our house. Is living room window. We took that tree out. That's the stump of it. Used to be big, but it was blocking those power lines, so we had to take it down. That's... I can't get it. There went the car. There's our driveway. I can't get it good because of the screener. There's the road. It's looking through the screen if you're wondering. Ooh. Got it. There's concern. There's the sky. There's the Scarfuti's mailbox. I can't see you. I don't know. I'm here. Because the tree's like it. There's one in the camper. Scarfuti's little pipe thing. And while if you're watching this, you'll probably get motion sickness because I can't hold it straight because my arm's all tired. This better? Is that better? Oh, I'm bored. I always wondered what those boxes right there were for. Well, oops. Goodbye. They're not under that.
You can That hand section consists of one
Yeah.
cannon, 8 cannoneers,
Get over
2 limbers,
Come here.
a case on it, which is like a double limber, and all the horses it takes a driver to move that around. The guy who's down here actually running this detachment of cannoneers is incorporated. He reports to a sergeant who's in charge of these 4 vehicles, who in turn is responsible to the lieutenant who commands that gun and all of its stuff, this gun and all of it. It's like feeding the bear. So that's how it works. Yep. Sounds like they're ready to rock through here. A lot of manpower, a lot of animals.
Dad. What's in there? Did I?
Better don't get in front of that.
Why?
Why?
Oh.
You're right.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to do that.
Oh, really?
Hey, get this right here.
Those are horses.
Get this right here. It has the
There's 2 guys with each horse.
battery.
Well, these 2 guys are with the limber.
Limber's ammunition carrier?
They're standing there right now, yeah. It carries ammunition. It's got 1 box of ammunition, and it also hooks up to the trail of the gun to tow it.
Okay.
So what do they do? Run the ammo up to them?
Well, the number 5 man, which is right here, he can go back and get it ran up. Then this is your case on, and another limber back behind the line, back down behind the ridge here, so it's out of range, out of sight of the enemy guns.
And the horses are all right there?
It depends on how long they're planning on being there. If they're going to be there only a short period of time, they might keep the horses with the limber so they can get out of there quickly. If they're going to be there for a while, the horses will move back too. Again, if you lose your horses, you can't move your gun. They have to protect your horses.
And how are the horses able to take the noise on? Are they pretty good?
Oh yeah, they would handle it. I mean, it's like any other training they had to go through. They had to get used to the sound. We had a horse, we were doing some horse drawing yesterday. The guy that owns this gun right here, he also has horses to do it with, and he brought a team in. He had 4 horses. One of the horses in the group was kind of green, and sure enough, when we started shooting, it spooked and made it kind of interesting for a few moments for us.
These are Napoleons down there?
Yeah, all 4 of them are Napoleons.
And those ones up there, those little skinny ones, they're the parrots?
Those are parrots, because you can tell with the band that's been shrunk onto the back end of the
They can, even though they can shoot a lot further than these.
Yes, sir. Yeah, this goes about a mile. Those are each mile and a quarter.
I've talked to them. Yeah.
Mile and a half.
But it's all pretty much straight.
Okay. You have them parked in this morning. Are any of them actual cannons, or are they just put up?
Oh, no. Quite a few of them original guns.
Right, put the lid on.
After the war was over, the guns were kind of stockpiled, but of course the technology kept advancing, so those that weren't mellowed down to make new guns became available for the battlefield. So yes, some of the guns you see here may have very well fought here. You don't know. You had to find the history on them.
The barrel may look authentic, but the actual...
The carriage itself is different.
Yeah. I think they choose
a lot of these...
The carriage, huh?
Yeah, a lot of these, that's probably a wood carriage there, but a lot of them you go around the battlefield, the carriage are actually made out of metal.
That's not very likely. To have a metal carriage?
Not from back then, no, but today that's what I'm saying.
To keep them up.
To keep them up. There's less maintenance involved with the metal carriage as there would be a wooden carriage.
And why would they have 2 guys back here?
For the limber? Yeah. You had, both these guys have specific duties. Okay, they're taking care of cutting fuses. Whenever the
Well, good afternoon. I would like to take this brief opportunity that I have on behalf of the Park Service to do a couple of things right out. First of all, before we begin the program, I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome you all to Gettysburg. Hoping you find your way around the park okay. There's lots of things to see and do, as you can imagine. If you have any questions about what to see and do, where to go, how to get someplace, feel free to come up to me and ask me. I'll try to put you in the right direction. Also, volunteer Lisa Wood. Ask her, or any one of our volunteers back here. So we have a lot of stuff going on. Also like to welcome you out here to Pitzer Woods to our Living History Artillery demonstration this Labor Day weekend. This is actually our 5th annual artillery weekend with Purcell's Battery, and I'm sure you're going to enjoy it. A little bit about living history before we begin here at Gettysburg. We're always very fortunate here at Gettysburg to have invited, have accepted into the park some of the best living history groups in the nation to come into the park to present Life of the Civil War Soldier programs to you folks. At present, we have over 1,500 individuals involved in our Living History program. We start the Living History Life of the Civil War Soldier programs around April 1st, and we'll complete the season on November 1st. So almost every weekend you come to Gettysburg, you can learn a little bit more through Living History on artillery, infantry, cavalry, medical, you name it, we have it here at Gettysburg. So come on back now, any weekend in the fall, you'll find somebody out in the field with artillery or infantry or cavalry. Unfortunately, here at Gettysburg, we don't have the ability to perform Living History by ourselves. You can imagine the cost involved and the lack of staffing and so forth, like many parks around the Park Service. So we do rely for Living History on volunteers, men just like the Purcell Battery in front of you, who travel long distance, spend their own money without compensation, and more importantly, give up their weekends for you folks. In this case, these men have given up their Labor Day weekend for you. So without the use of volunteers, we could not offer Living History on any of those weekends throughout the year. So maybe this is a good opportunity that we have, since we're collectively together here, to show our appreciation to the men of Purcell's Battery who have given up their Labor Day weekend for you. Now, this is also a very rare treat in the National Park Service, battlefields, military parks. Usually don't have the opportunity to have a complete four-gun Confederate battery on their field. So this is very unique. You might never see this again in the national parks, unless you come to Gettysburg next year and they're willing to come back. What they're going to do for you here is we're going to talk and demonstrate the role and function of artillery during the American Civil War. They're going to first start by introducing you to the cannons, what type of weapons they were, how they were fired, what their distances were, how they functioned. Then they're going to talk a little bit about the ordnance, how the type of projectiles that were fired out of the cannon and so forth. They're going to get into that a little bit. Then they're going to introduce you to probably the most important element, and that's the human element. They're going to go through each position on the cannon. Each one of these cannoneers has a unique position, and they'll show you what we like to call the ballet of artillery as each man goes through their artillery position. They will also load and fire the weapons, but Park Service regulations are quite clear. They're not to live fire the weapons. So unfortunately, you're not going to hear and see cannonballs flying down range, shells exploding over Little Round Top, taking out the tour buses up on the Emmitsburg Road. But they are going to blank fire about 8 to 10 ounces of black powder in a blank cartridge. That's roughly about half the amount that was used to fire a projectile in the Civil War, by the way. And that 8 to 10 ounces of black powder is quite loud, especially when the guns are fairly close and there's a lot of them. So when they go to fire, you might want to consider, if you have a hearing aid, turning it down a notch or two. Also, if you have sensitive hearing yourself, just cover your ears up and open your mouth to relieve the pressure. That should do it. Also, if you have little babies, you might want to warn them of the bang. Small children, they get a little excited when they hear the cannons go off. They're not familiar with them. Also, dogs and cats, pets. If you have a pet stashed away back there and would like to take your pet home this afternoon, in other words, you might want to keep them on a short leash. Usually pets are not familiar with Civil War artillery. I don't know how many people have them in their front yard and fire these guns on a regular basis. So pets are pretty unfamiliar with artillery. And unless you tether them out down to them, when the guns go off, those pets will scatter to the four corners of our 6,000-acre park, and you'll never see them again. So if you value your pet, would like to take them home, just keep them on a short leash, tethered right down to you. And finally, for your own safety, black powder. It's a Class A explosive. It's highly dangerous and highly volatile stuff. These men in front of you are trained and experienced on how to use that black powder safely. But to separate you from any potential problems associated with that highly volatile black powder, your National Park Service, at your taxpayer expense, has spent weeks erecting this very sturdy barricade that you can see in front of you. All we do is just do what you're doing now, respect that barricade, and also the perimeters of the firing area. We don't really want anyone out into the field in front of the muzzle of the guns for your own safety. After the program, however, the officers of the battery, when they deem everything is safe and put away, they might invite you to lift that sturdy barricade up and come take a closer look at the guns. You can walk right up to them, ask any questions of the cannoneers, of the men that you have at that time. They're very engaging, very knowledgeable group, so come on down after the program when the officers say everything is safe. Well, I tell you what, it's been a great weekend, like always, for the past 5 or 6 years anyway, with the Purcell's Battery. They are, like I said, if not the finest, one of the finest artillery groups with living history in the nation, in the world. So we're very fortunate to have them. We're very fortunate to have you folks. I see a lot of familiar faces. Those have been supporting living history all year and for the last few years out here on the field, and we're glad you're here. Having the best living history groups in the nation, like Purcell's Battery and Bobby Lee, who's the captain who's commanding the battery, makes my job very, very stress-free. It also makes it very low-key. So to talk about the role and function of artillery, I'd like to introduce you to a gentleman that's been doing living history here at Gettysburg for quite a long time. He's been involved in living history for over 15 years. He's currently employed as the site manager at South Mountain Battlefield. That's a state of Maryland state park. So he is a Civil War historian and also happens to be the group's spokesperson for Purcell's Battery this afternoon. I'd like you all to meet Mr. Al Preston. Al?
Thanks, Tom. I'd like to welcome everyone here to Gettysburg Battlefield 2. On Friday evening, whenever I was getting ready to leave the house there, my wife was asking me if I was going to have a good time up here. I said, well, let's look. Labor Day weekend, Gettysburg Battlefield, and artillery. Yeah, I'm going to have fun. No doubt about it. So we're here. We're hoping that we can entertain you all a little bit, too, and give you some more information you might not have had when you got here today. As Tom was saying, the group behind you is representative of Purcell's Battery. And we're actually a couple of different groups that have come together just for this special occasion. It's like you said, you don't usually see a 4 full-gun battery demonstrated on the field, so this is kind of a unique experience. Purcell's Battery was actually formed in the early war, 1861, down around Richmond, Virginia. They're named after their benefactor. He was a businessman down there, fairly rich, fairly influential, and he was able to outfit the battery, so of course they named the battery after him. Here at Gettysburg, the battery was actually commanded by Captain Joseph McGaw. It was part of Pegram's battalion, which of course was part of A.P. Hill's Reserve Artillery. They were very, very actively engaged in the first day of the battle here at Gettysburg along Hers Ridge. They moved to an area about a mile north of where we are located right now for the second day of battle, when they were engaged in trying to flush out some federal sharpshooters that were located in some buildings. They fired some rounds there to help move those guys along. And then, of course, they were very, very actively engaged on the third day during Pickett's charge. Supposedly, Purcell's Battery fired about the most ammunition of any battery engaged during the 3 days battle here at Gettysburg. Now, they did have 4 Napoleon smoothbore cannon, just like the 4 that you see behind us here. I'm going to be explaining a little bit more about the different types of artillery. But first, what I would like to do is I'm going to tell you a little bit more about the School of the Peace, as it's referred to. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the positions around the gun, the different names for the crew that works on the gun, and what their responsibilities are. So if you focus your attention to the gun on my extreme right down here, which would be your left, this crew is going to help us with a demonstration here. The crew, as you see it lined up there right now, has a minimum of 8 people involved with it. Most of the people don't even have a name, though. They're only referred to as cannoneers, and they're given a number. The one person in this group, though, that does have a name is the gunner. There's a gentleman right there in the right hand there. He's raising a pendulum hawse. The pendulum hawse is used to help point the gun. The guy is a corporal, and because of that, he has quite a bit of responsibility for a person of this rank. When he helps to move up to the gun there, he's pointing the piece. He uses the front blade on the front of the gun there and uses that pendulum Haas as a rear sight, very, very much like sighting an open-sighted rifle today. But they refer to it as pointing the piece. Once he gets up there and he does that, of course, he's responsible for other things among the crew here too. He's responsible for calling for the rounds of ammunition that need to be brought up. He supervises the crew. So he does have a lot of responsibilities for a rank of corporal. As I said, the rest of the crew is referred to simply as numbers, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to call out that number, and each person will identify themselves, and I'll tell you what their function is around the gun there. Number 1. Okay, the number 1 man stands to the right front of the gun, and in his hand there you happen to see that long stick that's got kind of a dirty-looking Q-tip on the upper end. It's referred to as a sponge rammer. Okay, obviously, since it has 2 names attached to it, it serves 2 functions. The top part there, the sponge part, is used to help put out any embers that may be inside the bore of the gun. Okay, the sponge is kept slightly moist, not dripping wet, because too much water is as bad as not enough. And every time the gun is fired, he will run that sponge down into the tube to try to extinguish those embers. It's not so much to worry about cooling the gun off. A little bit of water that's on that sponge won't do that very effectively. But again, it's mainly a safety feature to extinguish any of the embers that are still inside the gun. On the other end, you see that wood block there. That's used to ram the charge down the bore of the gun. Again, these are muzzle-loading guns. Everything has to be pushed to the breech or the lower end of the gun in order for the gun to operate. So he uses that wooden block to push the charge and the round all the way down to the breech of the gun to make it available for firing. Number 2. Number 2 stands to the left front of the gun. In his hand there you see a device which is kind of like a corkscrew device on the end of the long pole. That's referred to as a worm. And in between rounds he would use that to reach down inside of the gun and try to search out the piece to see if there's any of the remains of the cloth bag that goes around the gunpowder that might still be in the breech of that gun. When this thing goes off, pretty much the whole bag either disintegrates or goes down range with the round, except for the very end of it, which generally doesn't get burned up very much. And of course, that's a good place for embers and sparks to hide. So he does have to reach down inside that tube about every 5th, 6th round or so to go ahead and fish those remaining parts of the bag out so that the embers don't lay inside of there. He also helps to introduce the round whenever it's brought forward. He puts it into the gun, and then he also has a very, very important task on misfire drills, which we hope we don't have to demonstrate today. Number 3. Number 3 man stands to the right rear, and you see on his left hand there, the thing that's covering his thumb, looks like he's missing most of a glove. That's called a thumb stall. It's a leather piece of glove, it's just like I said, it's tied around his hand, and on the end of it has a pad made out of horsehair. Now he would take that thumb stall, and the entire time that the gun is being serviced, he would hold it over the vent of the gun. That's right where the friction primer goes. The reason he does that is, again, it's another safety feature. By keeping that vent covered, the air is not permitted to exchange back and forth through the breech of the gun. If the air were to move back and forth across through there, and there's any embers laying inside of there, it would act like a bellows. It would just fan that flame that much hotter, that much brighter, so whenever the next round is introduced, chances are it probably would go off. So he has to keep that thumb over that vent the entire time the gun is being serviced. He also has with him a priming wire, a brass wire, that he will use to go ahead and run down through that vent to break open the powder bag when it's time to insert the friction primer. You have to break open the bag so that you're sure that the fire from the primer can reach the gunpowder inside the bag. He also has another important function in that whenever the process is at the right stage, he will move around to the trail of the gun to help the gunner point the piece, and we'll show you how he does that shortly. Number 4. Number 4 stands to the left rear. He's the guy that gets to have all the fun. He would call him the trigger man. And his right hand there, he's holding a long cord, is referred to as a lanyard. The only function that he has to do is make sure that the primer is introduced into the vent at the proper time. He'll pay out that lanyard so he's standing outside the wheel, and then of course pull the lanyard at the proper time to make the gun go off. The lanyard has to be long enough, obviously, so that he is standing outside the wheel of the gun, because these guns have a nasty habit of recoiling as much as 12 feet. If you're standing behind the wheel when it goes off, you might get run over. Number 5. Number 5 man is the marathon man with this group. He's the guy that has to run back and forth between the limber chest, which is where the ammunition is stored, and up to the front of the gun to give it to the number 2 man. On his right hip there, he has a gunner's haversack. It's a leather bag, basically, that he will carry the ammunition in. He will use that bag to protect the ammunition so that any stray sparks or anything like that won't ignite the charge before it's supposed to. So he will protect that in that bag and not open it until the number 2 man is ready to take it from him to put it in the muzzle of the gun, keeping the exposure down as minimum as possible. Back here at the limber chest, you see number 6 and number 7. Their function, they're the mathematicians with this crew. Okay, they're the thinking men here. They have to be able to determine how long to cut the fuses. Whenever the gunner calls out for a particular round, if it's a fused round, that is, it's an exploding round, he will also call out the range, usually in yards. These guys back in the limber chest have to be able to compute that from range into time. They have to determine how many seconds it's going to take for that round to reach that distance, cut the fuse at the proper place, insert it into the projectile, and then send it forward with the number 5 man to be loaded into the gun. All right, what we're going to do now is we're going to have this crew go through the procedures of loading this gun 2 times. We're not actually going to fire. This is just going to be for pretend, so you don't have to worry about covering your ears or anything. But this way you get to the idea of how this whole choreography works together. Gunner?
Boom! Case shot, 1,000 yards.
Okay, as you heard, he's called for a round. Case shot, 1,000 yards. This is a fused round. Guys back at the limber chest have to cut the fuse to the right length. While they're doing that, the number 1 man has already gone ahead. He's sponging out the tube. Once he's ready, you'll hear him strike the tube with the other end of the rammer so that the people know that he is ready for the round to come forward. Number 5 man stopped with the gunner to verify the range. He's giving it to the number 2 man at this point, who puts it in the muzzle of the gun. Number 1 man goes ahead and rams the round home. Once that procedure is done, the number 3 man steps around to the trail and he's going to help point the piece. The gunner, as he taps the trail, he's indicating which direction he wants that trail to move to help with the sighting. Once he's satisfied with the pointing, he raises his hands to indicate everything's okay, and everyone goes back to their starting positions.
Ready.
The command ready. Number 1 and number 2 man break back from the muzzle blast of this gun to get out of the way. Number 3 steps in. He broke open the powder bag with the priming wire. Number 4 man has introduced the friction primer to the gun, and now they're ready to fire.
Fire.
Okay, and then the whole process starts all over again.
Load. Case shot, 1,200 yards.
Once again, got a 1,200 yards range here. He's altered his point of aim slightly. Either the aim was wrong or his target has moved slightly, so he's adjusted his range. The men are going about their aiming procedures. I've been talking about this friction primer. The friction primer is just this little thing right here I have in my hand. This whole thing, the little thing weighs about an ounce, sets this whole gun off. The brass tube across the top here is a rubber wire, not because it's made out of rubber, but because it rubs against the compound at the top that causes the spark. It's like a strike on anything match. Inside of here is a finely grained powder. When the match goes off, the powder goes off, fires down into the gun, and hopefully the gun goes off. Okay, the gunner's satisfied with the aim now.
Ready.
Number 4 man's paying out the lanyard now again, so he's outside of the wheel.
Fire.
And away it goes. Okay, now he's ordered ceasefire. He's going to secure the piece. We're going to get ready for the rest of the demonstration. One thing about the friction primers, they were pretty dependable, but to just give you an idea of the possibility of these things not working right, typically on a 6-pound gun you would have 50 rounds of ammunition. You'd have 75 friction primers in there just to make sure in case anything went wrong. Okay, the captain's called action front. What the crews are doing now are taking their implements. They're getting ready to service the gun and proceed with the demonstration here. We're going to be demonstrating a couple different ways of firing this battery. Now, the first way is going to be fired by piece. That means each individual piece will fire one at a time. As we said, this is quite loud, even though it's only half a powder charge. It can be quite a bit of noise quite a bit of smoke, so you get an idea of what these guys had to put up with, even at this limited basis. And multiply that by hundreds for all the guns that were going off, you get an idea of what it was like in here. Captain has conferred with his section lieutenants. They picked out the target, they have identified which guns are going to fire what target. Lieutenants have gone back, they're talking to the gunners now to make sure that they're on line with everything else. Everyone's shooting at the proper target.
Shell, 900 yards! Shell, 900 yards! Shell, 900 yards!
Okay, now you notice, as the command was given, it was repeated over and over and over so that everyone is sure of exactly what they're supposed to be doing. The guys on the limber will repeat the command, and the number 5 man, whenever it's a fused round, will repeat that when he produces that round to the gunner to make sure that it is correct. A lot of noise, a lot of confusion going on out here all this time. So again, you want to make sure that everything is being done properly. So repeat the command several times, make sure everyone is correct on it. Yeah, good thing to do here is if you cover your ears, open your mouth a little bit, that kind of lets the pressure equalize. It won't hurt your ears as much.
Ready.
As each gun's prepared, you hear the command ready being given.
Fire by piece! Fire by piece! Number 1 gun! Fire! Fire! Fire!
That's the way it's supposed to work. All the guns went boom and no one lost any fingers. And now Park Service rules require that we take a little time in between rounds to let the guns cool off a little bit, make sure that there's no embers inside there burning. So while that procedure is going on, you folks have to listen to me talk a little bit longer here. What I'm going to do is going to talk a little bit about the guns themselves right now. As we said, these guns that are in front of you here are 4 Napoleon guns that fired a 12-pound projectile. Okay, the guns get their names quite often by the weight of the projectile they fire. So again, if this is a Napoleon or a 12-pounder, what's the weight of the ball that it fires? Ah, yeah, all right, good. Somebody's were listening. Good. 12 pounds. They also had other guns, of course. There was a 6-pound smoothbore that was pretty much out of service by this time. They'd taken the 6-pounders, they're a bronze tube too, and they melted them down to make more Napoleon. Behind you and to your right, those black guns you see over there are Parrott rifles. Again, they can be referred to by poundage. These guns in particular fired a 10-pound projectile. They also had 20-pound Parrott rifles. Some of the other black guns you might see on the battlefield are 3-inch ordnance rifles. Again, they fired a 3-inch projectile. The Napoleons right here, you notice they look just a little bit different than the guns down here because they're kind of green in color. They weren't painted that color. That's what happens with the oxidization of the metal. And a little bit further down there, you see some howitzers. Again, they're smoothbore also. Now you hear me talking about rifled and smoothbore here already a couple times. The advantage of rifled guns over smoothbore is the fact that the rifle guns, of course, have some spiral grooves on the inside of the barrel. And what that does, it allows the projectile, such as this one right here, to come out of the gun with a spin on it. Now you have a pointed object like this with a spin, automatically you're going to not only increase the range, but you're also going to increase the accuracy. Okay, so the spinning projectile has a greater range and also greater accuracy. Now the projectiles themselves had to be slightly undersized to fit down the barrel smoothly. Okay, you didn't want too tight a fit. But at the base, of these projectiles. They had a soft metal ring around here. It's a bow. It could be made out of bronze, copper, lead, something like that. It's something fairly soft, so that whenever the gun goes off, the powder charge goes off to send this down range. It will also expand this ring that will help tighten up the fit inside the barrel. It cuts down on the amount of gases that escape around the projectile, and also forces that skirt into those grooves on the inside of the barrel. The other guns, as we were talking about, are smoothbore. They don't have this advantage of the rifling, obviously, but they still had their place in Civil War batteries. On the front of this, you can see this is the location for the fuse. Now, I already talked about the fuses. They had to be cut to fit for the particular range you wanted to fire this thing. When the gun goes off, the flame that wraps around this projectile is actually what ignites the fuse in the front here. So again, you had to be very careful you didn't put this thing in the wrong way or it'd blow up in the gun. This is a 12-pound ball for the Napoleon, solid ball. The shot, as it was referred to, the solid projectiles, were very, very good at long-range work. They could be used against fortifications. They could be used against counter-battery fire. You would actually fire them at other guns that were firing at you. They were good also against infantry in certain circumstances. If you could catch an infantry line as it moved past the front of your guns, you could fire in enfilade, that is, meaning firing down the length of the line of the infantry troops. Now, this ball, because of its weight and the momentum involved in it, would probably run out of bodies before it ran out of speed, whenever you catch people in that condition. It could also be fired directly at the troops, but it wasn't quite as effective. You hit one person with one of these things, he kind of blows apart, so it does have a psychological effect to the people standing on both sides of him, because you get body parts spattered all over you. But the other thing you could do, and gunners would practice this, is if you fired in front of the infantry lines, you could use this to skip across the ground, similar to what you do with a stone on water. And if you did it correctly, it would careen, it would bounce around, you wouldn't know what way it was going, plus whatever it hits on the ground also becomes airborne and is a projectile itself, and it goes into the faces of the troops that you're shooting at. Another round that you would use here would be the shot or shell. We're going to get in a little bit more description of the different types of ammunition here shortly. The other features that you have with the guns here is, again, that you can mix these guns up in batteries. So it was advantageous to have some rifle pieces along with the smoothbore types, simply because some of the smoothbore guns were much, much better and more effective as anti-personnel devices versus the long-range rifle pieces. And we're going to get ready to shoot here again. I called for shell again. This time what we're going to do is we're going to fire by section, which means two guns will be going off at the same time. As we said, in a typical battery like this, you would have the captain in charge of the battery. You would have section lieutenants who were in charge of two guns. It wasn't uncommon to find in a battery that one section might be firing at one target, and while another section was firing at a different target. You could even break it down further so that each individual gun might have its own target from that battery. Now, the range on these guns, even the smoothbore Napoleons, was about a mile. You could hit a barn out there about every time with one of these guns. The comparison is with the rifle pieces, they could fire out to 1.25 miles, 1.5 miles, and you'd be able to hit the barn door just about every time. Okay, we're getting ready to fire, so check your hearing. like I was saying, that you know, a little practice, a little bit of training, that's the way these guns should go off every time. Whenever you call for the section of the battery, it sounds like one gun going off. They did a very good job of it at that time. I was starting to talk a little bit about some of the ammunition there. I was comparing them. I already mentioned the shot of the solid ball. This is shell. Okay, basically, shell would be just a hollow ball with a powder charge inside of it. It would be a fused round, so it would be predetermined, the burn time, how far they want this to go before it would explode. Shell could be used for a couple different things. First of all, whenever it explodes, of course, the case itself is going to split apart into 7 or 8 different size jagged pieces of metal. Now, your chances of being hit by one of those pieces of metal are probably pretty slim, and experienced troops knew not to worry too much whenever they see these things bursting in the air. But it could also be used for other things. If, don't forget, these guns had to be towed around by horses. And if you could find a team of horses that may have had a green horse in it, one that's not used to being under fire yet, and you explode one of these very near it, whenever it goes off, chances are that particular horse is going to spook a little bit, and you're going to have your hands full trying to maintain control over that team. It's going to create havoc of its own back behind the line. Other things it's good for is that it is an incendiary device. There's a lot of flame, a lot of sparks involved with these things when they go off. So if you've got an enemy that's in position in a wooded area, or if you've got some sharpshooters in a house out here somewhere, fire a couple of these things into it, let them blow up inside, chances are you'll set that house on fire pretty quickly, and you'll be able to rid the sharpshooters, move them out of there very quickly also. So it's very good for that. Another way of using this is if you can explode it very close over the heads of the enemy formation. Now, you might not hit anyone with the metal that comes out of this thing, but just the concussive effect of this thing going off over people's heads can be very, very disorienting. It's like being hit in the face by a heavyweight boxer. So it can disorient them. They become pretty much useless for a period of time until they're able to regain their senses. So even though you may not have hit them, you may not have killed them or wounded them, you still take them out of action for a period of time. It can be very useful that way. The other way that this can be used is they take little steel or lead balls and put inside of that. So now you've got spherical case shot, okay? Those little balls inside of there are actually developed by a man by the name of Henry Shrapnel. You recognize that name. The idea again was to have this explode as it was approaching the enemy line. It would break open the case, the small balls inside would spread out into a pattern. It was like a long-range shotgun blast. So you'd be able to hit the enemy at a very long range using this. It would create quite a bit of havoc in itself. This was also very good to be used against enemy artillery. Because again, these guys are standing very close around this gun. You could explode one of these at the right spot as it came down towards that formation. You could eliminate a lot of those gunners very, very quickly. Both of these rounds, because they are fused, again, they have to be predetermined, and the fuse has to be set for a certain distance. The fourth round that was used out of these guns was canister. And canister rounds was sinister, and there's a reason for that. Inside of this can, this tin can here, there's about 20 or 21 of these steel balls, about 1.5 inches, 1.25 inches, something like that across. When this is fired out of one of those guns, basically you change that gun into a huge shotgun. These steel balls will come out of the muzzle of that gun, they'll break out of this case, spread out across in front of the gun, and pretty much mow down anything that's in front of them. Many times when large numbers of artillery was massed and they fired canister out of them, the artillerists talked about the pink haze that drifted over the battlefield. I'm sure everyone can figure out what that pink haze was. That's why they refer to this as canister, and we refer to it as being sinister. Inside of here, along with the balls, there was some sawdust, some material to help keep the balls from fusing together. Again, that helps them to stay in pattern. In more desperate situations, as the enemy infantry gets closer and closer to you, this is when this is used. This is used at shorter ranges, 400, 500 yards. Again, because of the infantry getting close to you, they get to that range, they're able to start firing back at you. Now, you've been lobbing shells at them all afternoon. Now they're finally in a position to pay you back a little bit. And they're going to. So that's when you switch over to the canister. You greet them with that. In more desperate situations, they refer to double canister. They would take one of these rounds with the powder bag attached, put it in the tube of the gun. They take the second round, lop the powder bag off, put it right in front of the first one. So you fire 2 of these cans out of the gun all at one time. In more extreme situations, I've even heard them firing triple canister. At that point, the enemy is pretty much right up to the muzzle of the gun, and you're in danger of being overrun. And once again, the ammunition has been called for. You heard the command being repeated over and over. These particular rounds, with the wooden sabot attached to them, were fixed ammunition. That is, the powder bag would be attached to the round. Both the powder and the round of ammunition would go down the tube together. Some of the other guns, like the 3-inch ordnance rifle and the Parrott gun, both had the powder charge and the projectile introduced separately. So you would have to feed the powder charge in, and then would have to ram a second time to put the projectile down. This time will be a battery fire. Hopefully all 4 will go off at the same time.
Ready. Hold your ears, buddy. Hold your ears. Watch.
Okay, that ends the demonstration. We want to thank everyone for turning out here today. We're going to take a few minutes to prepare the guns. We'll go ahead and take the barricades down here. Walk up and talk to the guys in the crew. Does anyone have any questions right now? Yes, ma'am.
You know, it does give me a
Well, every man on the gun, the question was, is what happens whenever a man on the gun gets hit, wounded, or killed? Every man on the gun has to know every other man's job, so they're cross-trained. They have a complete drill that's referred to the reduced numbers drill, so each man can step up and take over the other man's duty. You can fire this gun effectively with as little as 2 men, but you've pretty much done away with all the safety procedures at that point.
How often can they refire it? How long does it take them to get the second round out and the third round?
They preferred a steady, measured rate of fire with these guns, once every 2 to 3 minutes. Okay, but the gun, when pressed, you can fire these cannons as quickly as an infantryman could load and fire his rifle, which is once every 20 seconds. And again, you've done away with a lot of the safety procedures. About 1,200 yards, as well as the range. Thank you, sir. Okay, just been informed the guns are secure. If you want to walk forward, you can take a closer look at the guns. And of course, ask any questions that you have. Again, thank you very much for turning out here today. Hope you enjoyed yourselves.
Thank you.
These guns would fire about 1,600 yards. And the range over there to the Emmitsburg Road is about 1,200. Bronze guns, again, they're usually steam filled. Okay? The steel guns that you see around there, the black ones, are usually rifles.
Oh, okay, so that's just the main difference?
That's the main difference. Just like you said, the one's made out of steel, the other one's made out of bronze.
I have a question. They said during the battle, the water shots actually went over their heads, actually missed the targets.
Right.
I mean, because best calculator, or?
Yeah, well, one of the disadvantages the Confederates had here is you look across the field there, it looks like it's pretty much level, but it's not. The Federals actually have a slight height elevation over the Confederate line here. So whenever they fire over there, if they fired long, they couldn't see where the rounds were falling. So they didn't know how to adjust them. As these guns recoil, of course these guns in particular, they can recoil as much as 12 feet. Well, as they rock back and forth, those trails can slowly dig themselves in. And as the trail goes down, the muzzle goes up, and of course that helps to contribute to the overshooting too. And not only that, you saw all the smoke and everything that was involved with just these 4 guns. Imagine that multiplied 100 times or more. All the smoke and confusion. It was difficult for them to see what effect the rounds were having.
I heard a living history gentleman say yesterday that the ground rolled like an earthquake when 150 guns were.
It probably did. I mean, again, you could feel the effect of these 4 guns going off. So imagine not only the fire from these guns, fire from those guns, and the projectiles hitting the ground too. I mean, it all contributes to that same feeling. So yeah, I'm sure it felt like a small earthquake.
Let's see these.
Nah.
These are all originals?
No.
I just noticed all the rust. I thought they were original.
When they fused the
ball, so the ring would expand like that? To take the rifle and shoot right out?
That's a Confederate reed shell. How we manufacture it to Treader Armory in Richmond.
Okay. Is there still a lot of the original shells around? I mean, or just based on museums?
Museums, and there's still some on the ground in private collections.
We were down at Charleston, they had a bunch of rounds, I guess, from the Virginia.
You missed it, Mom.
I heard him.
Yeah, we saw it. We saw it down there. Oh.
Shooting here and then working our way.
Yeah, on film.
It was excavated at the Battle of Trevilian Station. One of the largest cavalry battles ever.
Still loaded?
It's
been
unloaded.
Okay.
The one type was, again, it's kind of a paper or wood.
Did you see the whole thing?
You just cut it.
Oh, yeah, it was great,
and whenever that ignited on the end, it would take so much time for it to burn down.
See up here, huh?
The other type was called a Borman fuse. It was a circular fuse.
These are balls, yeah, huh? It's amazing how thick it is, huh?
Exposing that.
Yeah, that's a reproduction round. Just to illustrate, what a case shot would be. This would be your fuse, of course. They put your paper fuse in here that was cut to a certain length time to burn. And when the cannon was fired, it would ignite this little fuse, and it would travel in flight approximately 900 feet per second, 300 yards per second. So pretty quick over there. 1,200 yards, that'd be 4-second fuse they'd cut and put in here. And it would burn down 4 seconds, and the flame would hit this little powder chamber and explode the cannonball, and then you'd have the shell fragments themselves, plus all the little musket balls, case shot balls, also raining down on the troops.
It's amazing the technology back then, just...
Yes, it was. They were pretty advanced, I guess, for their time.
Yeah.
And the same basic principle used today.
It's nice you people do this. This is very educational.
The other thing, though, especially with the old rounds, they had a real nasty tendency.
He's a historian.
They buried themselves. It wasn't far enough of an impact to make it go off. It had to hit like a rock.
I've liked history ever since I was a little kid, too. Younger than you.
Yeah.
I mean, history needs to be, people have to understand and know it. It's up to you, buddy.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Go down and look at the guns if you like.
Yeah.
3 on this side are all original too.
Original tubes, okay. So. Yeah, let's check it out, guys, huh?
You get it with a hammer and set it.
Are they done? Can we look at some of this?
Sure.
This is what it looked like. It's like here, Pat, look at that.
Of course, this limber would have held about 24 rounds.
24 rounds?
So that would have been.
Oh, I see. It's section like this. Okay.
Well, there would have been an upper tier and there would have been a lower tier. Of course, you also probably would have had a tray where they would have kept their implements. There's a limber at the Park Visitor Center downstairs, which shows a section of it. It has the ammunition in it. Because everything is all self-contained. Different projectiles, powder bags, and everything.
Let's go burn our hands on it.
This would be full of ammunition, but this could last so long.
Well,
Could be like a
originally, of course, for backup, there was something called a limber, which was composed of, a caisson, which was composed of 2 of these,
Okay.
which would have been farther to the rear when the bombardment was taking place.
Okay.
Originally, the artillery during the bombardment was proceeding Pickett's charge. It was supposed to be slow fire. Anyway, what basically happened was it wasn't that slow. There were reports, especially on the Federal side, where the fire by the Confederates was wild, fast and wild. The firing was. In fact, there were 2 brigades which were supposed to have supported General Pickett on the right flank. Lang and the Wilcox brigades from 3rd Corps. They were supposed to have protected that flank. However, what happened was, because of the terrain, they couldn't see that they had to go at a 45-degree angle once they hit the road. Instead of going straight ahead, they were supposed to go straight up along basically Emmitsburg Road. But unfortunately, they went straight ahead into a lot of artillery fire, a lot of infantry fire. They were asking for artillery support. However, artillery, which was in their area, had no more ammunition. In fact, 82 guns were available, but they were disabled either due to no more ammunition or the ground was not suitable for them, or they were being held basically in tactical reserve. Originally, the artillery was supposed to support General Pickett. They were supposed to follow right behind him, but it didn't take place.
Well, I imagine like a fugitive those 3 days here. It's unbelievable.
Of course, Colonel Alexander was loaned some of the howitzers that the gentleman was referring to follow up, because they were good, basically at short range. By the time he wanted them, they were moved. That was the biggest problem, really, of the Confederate structure for the artillery, was anybody had command. General Hill, Colonel Walker, who was the chief in charge of the artillery for the 3rd Corps, Colonel Alexander, they each had authority to move battery from point A to point B whenever they wanted to.
Okay. You people do this every year?
Yeah, we come out here. Actually, this is our 5th year on this side of the field, but we've been coming here 6 years.
Okay.
Of course, 5 years we've been doing it
Right
for
here.
Labor Day, this area.
Okay.
Of course, we're in the area where Major James Deering's battalion was, but he was farther up, closer to the road. Whereas, unfortunately, it was another problem the Confederates
Yeah, I
had.
thought it was basically all back through here. All the guns were all back here.
Well, actually,
But they were actually further up.
It depended.
Okay.
On this side, farther south, the guns are quite a bit closer than we would think. Of course, it would not have done for them to be in this area. For one thing, as you can see,
It's right there.
Emmitsburg Road rises. Of course, by the 3rd day, the Federals were pushed back. In fact, you had Alexander's battalion over here at the Peach Orchard. You had a gun or 2 on the east side of Emmitsburg Road. You had Deering's battalion here, right just in front of on the west side of Emmitsburg Road. Of course, as you went farther north, they were a little farther back. But that was, as I said, it was a chronic thing. The artillery was very badly placed. Instead of there being a converging fire on the Federal lines, it was a diverging fire. course, that's where the Federals had, that was another plus. The Federals had this whole entire area. Pickett's charge took place from here on up north.
The whole fish on the edge on
The
huge.
whole area.
Yeah.
From Cemetery Hill, really farther than that, really Culp's Hill, of course that's that part of it, but just as an example. From Culp's Hill, Cemetery Hill, on down the ridge, of course the front, left, and the right. Especially on Little Round Top, there were batteries up there, or at least sections that gave Pickett a hard time, especially on the right. Now they had artillery trained on that side. It was Henry's battalion, but for whatever reason they weren't effective, and still Pickett's right flank was still being raked by artillery from Little Round Top, from Rittenhouse and Gibbs, who had sections up there. And of course, as you can see, this terrain is very deceptive.
Yes, it is.
You don't have to walk out too far in front of the guns to learn that it gradually starts to rise.
You know, just Pickett's charge goes up and goes.
And of course, the
It's
swale,
deceiving. Yeah.
the swale up here, you know, they dressed lines, of course,
Yeah.
offer them protection, especially if you walk it at the Virginia Monument. You get a very, very quick look. You know, it doesn't take you long to see how deceptive that ground really is. And of course, the tree lines don't help. Originally, of course, you could see Kadori Farm from here. Of course, over the years, a period of over 138 years or so, of course, the tree lines all overgrew everything.
Yeah. We heard somebody wants to make it like originally the way it was back then.
Yeah, that's
take
what
all
the
these
park-
trees out.
That's part of the park's general management program for the next about 10 years or so.
Are they going to take the trees out?
Yeah, in fact, they've just started on the eastern side of Emmetsburg Road,
Okay.
the Kadori Trossel farm area, Kadori Trossel Woods. They're starting to thin that out. Of course, that's going to take a period of about 10 years or so.
So they're trying to make it as original as they possibly can.
Originally, well, they're also going to add whatever fence rows were there, whatever woodlots were there.
Huh.
They're going to take away whatever vegetation wasn't there. Like this stuff here, you know, that just happened. That wouldn't have been here when the battle was taking place. Of course, this long area here that you see, this would have been a little thinner. It would have been a woodlot. Of course, that all would have been just a woodlot there.
Okay.
Of course, Pickett's troops were just north of here.
Yeah.
Just south of the Virginia Monument, and just from there north was troops of the 3rd Corps which participated. A division of and a half.
Interesting to see the changes. We go up here every year a couple times.
Oh yeah, we're up here quite a bit. As we come up for the reenactment, we come up for this. Of course, they have the Remembrance Parade every year, so we come up to that as well.
Get the show.
It always lures us back. It just.
Yeah. Because I had family that fought here as well.
Yeah, we had some.
One who took part in the bombardment just before Pickett's charge.
They survived the war? They survived the war?
Yeah.
I always like to read the article about the three people survived and they actually met each other on different sides.
Yeah.
Like 50 years later. Really
Hurt your ears, Pat?
No.
Were you holding yours like right?
No.
I bet. You're everything right as you do. I bet you were like standing there.
Oh, so sick.
Come across part?
Me.
Okay, Pat, please. I'm going to be
Yeah,
grandma.
me, look at me. Look at me.
All right, Pat, get your own coffee.
Yeah, don't waste it, film one kid.
Don't waste it, Pat, save it. You might see something you really want to.
How long would I talk to that person? I was getting boring. Oh, this.
Patty, someday you'll be interested in it.
I like World War
Alright.
II.
Okay, mountains.
I like World War II. There's Dad, still talking.
You think this is taking all that in there? Are they supposed to say east, north, south, west? I was thinking south in the morning, and I know where that's at. Yeah, but I mean, I know where that.
How many people were in this?
South of about. She was saying north of Emmitsburg Road, east of Emmitsburg Road,
Yeah, I
west of
know.
Emmitsburg Road. That just confusing me. I'm not sure which way. I'm sure
I raised my hand and said,
where's Emmitsburg Road? Yeah, that's it. I know that's it. I wouldn't know before, but I could say.
yeah. Had changed that order, had allowed the flank attack on the second day, which Lee expected, you know, his generals to be.
I'm surprised Longstreet not up on a stand.
I know, that whole statue is a bit of an enigma, I'd say.
Well, I like that statue, but I just wish I could see all the other
But he's a
ones.
little big for the horse, though.
You think?
Yeah, it's a little big, out of proportion. Horsey.
He is a good general. Longstreet, Jackson.
Oh, yeah. Of course, if Jackson had been here, they would have swept right through. The thing is, that would have made everything moot, because Meade was supposed to withdraw to the Pipe Creek area, and of course, the terrain there, Lee wouldn't have pressed it.
If Judge Stewart been here a day earlier,
Well, if Stewart had been here at all, period, and was cavalry versus cavalry with infantry coming up on both sides. It's really the way it really should have been, more than likely.
I guess the biggest problem back then is communications. It takes so long to get your
Well, plus
orders over.
He gave Stewart just a little too much freedom.
But he captured the whole supply line, so they knew they needed the supplies. So
Well, actually, for one thing, there's debate now about those wagons, whether they were empty or not. Full now, they think now they may have been empty. Plus,
give them a wage.
they were able to live off the land anyway, ever since they crossed in through Maryland into Pennsylvania.
Okay.
They were able to live off the land. In fact, there would have been more of a hindrance, you know, as they started to withdraw the next day on July 4th. And of course, the rains didn't help at all either.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
He must be a historian.
Oh, okay.
He's knows a lot. There's more than I do.
So what's this from?
Reads a lot.
Of course, the view from Cemetery Ridge, if you really want to see how deceptive
It's a
it
fader
is,
cut. Don't use it.
that's just as impressive. It just looks nice and flat, but if you go over and walk it,
No,
no, it's not. And of course, there are some good books on the event as well.
Let's go see the original gun. It's impressive. All these years is this stuff.
Of course, having a 4-gun battery here is very unusual.
Yeah.
Anyway, in fact, I think we're the first, or the only group really to do it.
Do you ever actually fire live rounds?
Well, actually, our group, of course, not here. We're not allowed.
Yeah,
to,
but-
of course, but we, our group, does compete in live fire competition.
Okay.
With cannons, but also with period long arms.
Okay.
In fact, 4 different groups make up Purcell's battery. So I'm from, this group here is Fredericksburg Artillery, and of course we compete. Most of us compete in live fire competition. Of course, you get the feel of what it felt like to have powder and the bullet in there. Of course, the powder is a lot less reduced for that for the situation. But it gives you an idea.
8 ounces now. We use maybe 12 ounces to shoot the live rounds. We use the
Of course,
full 16. Do you?
well, for this, for a gun, for the gun back then, it was 16 ounces. Of course, we're using 8.
Which
would have been half.
To shoot the live round?
Yeah.
Okay.
And of course, the recoil would be anywhere from 3 to 10 feet or so, depending on the gun, depending on what it was, what it fired, if it was rifled or not, things like that.
Yes, I enjoy it. Thank you.
Look, here you go.
No, this is
It's incredible. It's still work after all these years.
Set trees and stuff on fire.
1864.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, just in case.
Where was this gun from? I mean, originally?
I'm not sure how the gentleman acquired it.
Okay. It was used all through battle and Civil War, I mean, since 64?
Yeah, it's an original too. The two others were original, made during the Civil War.
Well, it was a one-time
This is neat, you can see everything how it actually was. See the different cannons, but you know, a lot of pieces are missing or it's frozen together. This actually everything's working.
What are the manufacture dates of the other two? Thanks again.
Another Revere comp was 1863, and I think the far one's Henry Hooper. I think it's 1862 manufactured.
That's impressive. Check this out, huh?
62
Yeah.
That was probably not.
Let's go.
How long once this is actually built, would it actually last? 20 years, 30 years? Because the wood will eventually rot away?
Well, eventually, yes. Also, the hubs, just depending on how careful it was. I mean, it's not as bad, believe it or not, if it's kept in active service. And we keep it freeze. We do like on the monuments where it sits in place. The water sits and it gets down into the hubs and it rots them out. That's usually the first thing that goes.
Okay.
But if it's in active service and being used all the time, keep it painted and greased, it will last indefinitely.
So I'll have to guys pull the wheels off the grease like every so many weeks, or?
Well, it should be, lucky to get it
once a season, yeah.
You should probably keep your garages protected.
Yes.
You don't want to keep them inside because actually keep them inside over the winter is worse for them than keeping them.
Oh, really?
Yeah, if it's in a climate control that gets so dry in the winter, the wood will shrink to it. We had one guy put one inside. He said, "Well, I'm going to really keep it good. I'm going to roll it in my basement for the winter." It ruined the carriage.
Wow. Keep it.
All right.
Really appreciate that.
Is that the one that presses all the way down? Yeah. One at a time. Take them up. Yeah. Ready? Yep. Forward. What do you say? You're welcome. So, Rat.
Let's get the car, guys.
Ryan, come on, we're leaving. We're leaving.
Come on.
Ryan.
What?
All right, Pat.
Right. That's okay. We'll get some paper towels for it.
I want to get that.
Axle grease is the same.
I like that, huh?
Yep.
see it. Come on, step back. Come on. What's nice about talking to people, and you start finding out the real truth, you find out that they actually have to find a lot of things that you would never. Yeah.
Can I record? I got it, Dad. There's like a bird's nest in there.
Yeah, let's go. Well, if I say the film, let's only get one more film.
Hello. We are now getting rid of our washer. Here's what it looks like before we get our new one. I don't care, I mean. Oops. Sphere. Picture inside of a picture. Oh, see this what's on my shirt there? I spilled Sunkist on me because I got it from my machine. I was in the bathroom and Ryan pushed me, and then I dropped it and I caught it with my shirt and it sprayed up and it went all over me. So if you know what that is, that's what it is. Oh, pass it. Okay, here. Can't see it. Okay. Backlight. There it is. And it didn't work. Well, here's night vision. That's our old washer. But I'm gonna turn this thing on. Light. That used to be our yard, but it's not. It's under the addition. Here's our old washer. We put this duct tape on because the belt broke in it, so we had so Dad had to take it apart, but the lid wouldn't go on right, so we had to tape it on. It's duct tape. Here's what it looks like. Here's what it looks like inside. There's jeans in there. I think it might look like. How do I turn the lid on? Light. Where's the light at? Menu. Just kidding. Yes. This is Night Shot. Yeah, what about it? Huh? I don't want to practice. Okay, now I'm gonna turn Night Shot off. It's off. Here's backlight. Like doesn't do anything. Alright. Here's our messed up house. Everything everywhere. There's Red Lake. Not like in Nintendo 64. There's our computer. It's Gateway 2000. Whoa, turn it on. It's off. Lord Gamer. There's outside. And here's me. See me? I'm right there. Hi. Hi. I'm looking through this thing here. Now I'm looking through this thing. Hilton Head Island. That's a safe ride. You see Hilton Head Island. I'm gonna go upstairs.
All right, Pat, turn it off. Your dad's gonna get mad. Patrick, turn it off. All right. Patrick, come on, listen, Pat. Turn it off before you get in trouble. Patrick, come on. I don't want you to get in trouble. Pat. Patrick.
It's my answer.
Just think, when you're growing up and you're wife or your girlfriend's watching that Cupid Burke one.
I want to the state then.
Okay, come on, Pat, turn it off now. Come on, Patrick, you don't want to
Turn it on.
Come on. Patrick. Pat, turn it off. All right, Patrick. When your dad sees that on there like that, you're gonna be getting in big trouble, and he hears me telling you.
So me about Friday, how'd you like the little 2 touchdown things?
Nike socks.
Yeah, that was a miracle.
74.
Right, miracle time, that's right. I said to your mother, we were standing under the end zone area where you were at, and I said to her, oh, that was before they scored the first time, and I said to her, they need a miracle.
We won the game on Friday. I'm surprised.
And we got that, and then, that was a real miracle. Patrick, come on, turn it off, you're just wasting film, Pat. Your mother and dad's gonna want that for the competitions and stuff, Patrick. Come on. Don't waste it, Patrick.
Oh no. The turn off button won't work.
Turn it off, Patrick, come on.
The turn off button won't work.
Patrick, turn it off, because if they gotta film a competition and it runs out of film, they're gonna be really mad at you, come on.
Yes, I'll be
Come on, Patrick, come on, listen nice. Come on, Patrick, you're not in 3rd grade anymore, come on.
I know I'm first. I know I'm in first.
Patrick, someday you're gonna regret making that film.
Why?
Because you're gonna say, everybody's gonna be looking at it and they're gonna say, oh, Patrick, did you act like that?
Sure did.
Yeah, and you'll be ashamed that you said that too.
That's in the future. Let's worry about the present right now.
Patrick, you better worry about the future.
Present. Past.
Come on,
So actually worse when I was little.
all right, come on, Pat, turn it off, because you are gonna get in trouble, I'm telling you. Patrick,
Yes?
aw, Patrick, come on, you must like to get yelled at.
Sure do. No, Ryan. Me said you can find because I ask. Remember Doofus?
Come on, Patrick.
All right. Here's a remote, but where'd it go? I just saw it on a film. Oh well.
I'll tell you, Patrick, you better just turn it off.
Does it work now?
Yeah, here's our old alarm died. That's a new one.
Got a little shot. There, move. This piece of shit crap.
Yeah.
Piece of shit crap.
Yep. Good thing.
There ain't much to that. You know how much is in her?
Can't take it apart.
Can't stay apart. Yeah.
What Regis Smith? Nothing?
That's bigger. Press in here. How much to Pat? Piece of crap.
No.
You're at 4.